So returning to our hexapod design, I've decided to add in a reinforcing ring to make the connection between the green base plate and the red central core. And you'll see that there's 6 threaded holes around that part to create that connection. So in this video we're going to look at how you can create features such as those threaded holes in your components. So moving to the reinforcing ring design, which I've got created as a separate part, where I just need to add in those holes, threads and patterns, we're going to be using mainly the create menu, and under the create menu we've got the hole and thread tools almost together, and in the latest release of Fusion they are now combined, so you can actually do these in one go, but we're going to do these separately. And the hole tool differs from the way that we've created holes previously, where we've actually created 2D sketches and then run an extrusion on that profile. The hole tool actually gives you an opportunity to put a hole in and do some other things in really one go. So it's also a good thing to use the hole tool if you're going to machine a hole into a component. So select the hole tool and then select the face that you want to apply that hole onto. And that hole appears and you see a red appearance to it. A hole is a cutting operation, so you see that red appearance to indicate that. You've got this blue center handle that you can drag the hole around in position on this particular face. Now you may find that that snaps automatically to some features that you have on the face that you've selected, or you may need to actually create a 2D sketch and create a point to accurately position it too. So at this point now I get some other options. I can choose whether to have this as just a simple hole, so that's just a simple drilled straight through hole. Maybe I want a counter bore, or maybe I want a countersink. So I can add those features in at this stage when I'm creating the hole. I can create the depth at this stage. I've actually got all selected because I want this to go all the way through, so under extents I've got all rather than distance selected. I can select the diameter of the hole. I can select the tip angle of the drill that's going to drill it. So if this was a hole that didn't go right the way through a part, you would actually see the tip of the drill geometry referenced in that particular hole. I can choose the countersink diameter and the countersink angle. When I'm happy with all of that, I click on OK and it's created that hole. So I've created a hole and I've created the countersink feature all in one go. I can now go back to the create menu and pick on the thread tool, and the thread tool is looking for you to point it at either internal circumferences of holes or external circumferences of shafts or cylinders. And in this case we want to pick on this internal circumference of the hole. As soon as I do that, you'll see that it's automatically detected the size of that hole and made that a 6mm thread. I can actually choose the type of thread system I want to use to create that thread, so there's about 12 or 13 different thread systems to choose from there. I also get to choose the pitch that conforms to that particular thread standard. So in this case there are 5 different pitch dimensions I could use for this particular thread. I can choose the class and I can choose whether it's a right hand or a left hand thread. And when I click on OK, it's now added a thread into that hole. Except what it's added in is a graphical indication of a thread, because often when you're machining threads in, you don't really need the 3D geometry, you just need a reference there to know that that's a threaded hole. If you're going to 3D print this part though, you would need that as 3D geometry. And if that's the case, then when you create the thread you just need to make sure that you tick this box here called modeled, and that turns that thread from being just a picture around the inside of that cylinder now to being a properly modeled 3D thread. So that's completed our hole and our thread. We now want to pattern this around that particular face. So returning to the create menu, there's an option called pattern. We can pattern in a rectangular way, in a circular way, or pattern along a path if we want. In this case we want circular pattern because we want to create a circular pattern on that face that hole's on, so I'm going to click on the circular pattern command. Now when you pattern something, you can pattern faces, you can pattern bodies, you can pattern components. In this case we're actually going to pattern features, and features allows me to pick features that I've created from the timeline and use those to pattern. So in this case I want to pick from the timeline the hole, Once I pick on the hole, you see that appear in blue on the screen, and I also want to pick on the thread. So it's actually added to that selection, so it's now got 2 features selected from the timeline, and I'm now going to tell it which axis, which is this blue vertical axis, and by default it puts that in 3 times. I'm going to overtype that and make it 6, click on OK, and I've now got 6 threaded holes added onto my part. So that's adding those in via features. Now maybe in order to assemble this, perhaps I want to split this ring into 2 to be able to put it around that central core. If I want to do that, underneath the modify menu there's a command called split body. Split body just wants you to point it at the body that you want to split and then provide it a splitting tool. Now a splitting tool can be a plane, it can be a sketch line, it can be quite a complex curve line that you've created as a 2D sketch. In this case I'm actually going to choose that vertical plane there, and when I click on that you see this disc spin out, so again it's showing you there's a cutting operation going to take place. And when I click on OK, you'll notice in the browser now I've got 2 bodies. So I've actually got body 1, and I've also got this second body which is the other side of it. So I've used a plane to actually split this part into 2. If you've ever got 2 bodies that you want to bring together, then the opposite of split body is called combine, and under combine you just need to first of all select the main body that you want to choose and then the secondary bodies that you want to add into it, and when you click on that and click OK, it joins those back together, and you'll notice back in the browser now we're back to a single body. So in this video we've looked at how you can create a pattern of features and also how to split and combine bodies to create our reinforcing ring.